Greenwich, Connecticut, a tranquil and affluent town. Here, towering mansions and lush green lawns tell a story of a different life. In one such traditional house in Greenwich lived Eleanor Van Dijk. Her husband, William Van Dijk, was a successful real estate mogul. Their life was filled with abundance and love. Their only child, Mark, was the center of all their dreams. But no one can predict which way life's path will turn. William's sudden death brought a deep void into Eleanor's life. He died of a heart attack, which was completely unexpected. Eleanor felt incredibly alone. Her only solace was Mark and the vast fortune William had left behind. William was a discerning and far-sighted man. He had meticulously documented all his assets in a detailed will, leaving everything to his wife Eleanor and son Mark. The will was exceptionally clear and precise, explicitly outlining the division of every asset and the terms of the trust. However, after William's death, his younger sister, Veronica Van Dijk, an ambitious and somewhat greedy lawyer from New York, brought a new crisis into Eleanor's life. Veronica had always kept a close eye on William's property. After William's death, she feigned sympathy to Eleanor, but her true intention was to seize a large portion of William's vast fortune. Veronica convinced Eleanor that William's will was old and contained some legal flaws. She advised Eleanor that taking this will to court would cause many problems and incur significant expenses. Veronica proposed that Eleanor create a new will, in which a portion of the property would also be in Veronica's name. She convinced Eleanor that this was the easiest and most hassle-free solution. Eleanor was a simple-hearted woman. She trusted Veronica. Veronica spoke so convincingly that Eleanor was swayed by her words. She thought that since Veronica was William's sister, she would only wish them well. Eleanor, without consulting her lawyer, agreed to Veronica's proposal. She signed a new will, which allocated a large portion of William's property to Veronica. Veronica took her share and returned to New York, further improving her standard of living. Eleanor thought that perhaps all the troubles were over. But a deep suspicion began to take root in her mind. William was not the kind of person who would create a flawed will. He always organized everything meticulously. Eleanor felt that Veronica might have deceived her. Eleanor was a calm and determined woman. She had spent most of her life as a curator at an art gallery. She knew that the truth always comes out. Following her old habit, she began to write a diary, where she meticulously documented every event that had occurred since William's death. She began to analyze every word, every step of Veronica's. She contacted her old friend, a retired private investigator named James Robinson. James was an experienced detective who had worked for many years in the Greenwich Police Department. James was surprised to hear everything. He assured Eleanor of all possible help. James made Eleanor understand that Veronica might have influenced William in some way to create the new will, or had committed some fraud without William's knowledge. Together, they began searching through William's old papers, his office, and his personal belongings. James began to monitor William's bank accounts and other financial transactions. Eleanor knew that this fight would not be easy. It was not just a fight for property, it was a fight for justice. She awakened her inner detective. Following her old habit, she began researching online. She gathered detailed information about will-related laws, fraud, and family property inheritance. She learned that if a will is suspicious, legal action can be taken against it. She also learned that William had secured his property through a secret trust. Eleanor spoke with her son Mark. Mark was an intelligent boy. He was surprised to hear his mother's story. He assured his mother of his support. Mark remembered some information about his father's will. William always used to say that his will was kept in a special place that only Eleanor and Mark knew about. But they could not remember where that place was. Eleanor and Mark together began searching for that special place. They meticulously examined William's old books, his favorite spots, and his secret diaries. Finally, they found the will in a secret drawer in William's old study room. The will was in a sealed envelope, on which was written, "For Eleanor and Mark only." Tears welled up in Eleanor's eyes as she held the will. She knew that William had not deceived her. Veronica had. After reading the will, both Eleanor and Mark were surprised. The will clearly stated that all of William's property would belong to Eleanor and Mark. No property was left for Veronica. The will also contained another important piece of information. William had written about a secret bank account where he had kept some extra money, exclusively for Eleanor and Mark. This account was in a small local bank in Greenwich, named Greenwich Savings Bank. Eleanor contacted James Robinson and showed him the will. James was pleased to see the will. He made Eleanor understand that it would now be easier to take legal action against Veronica. James put Eleanor in touch with an experienced lawyer named Laura Thomas. Laura was a renowned lawyer in Greenwich, specializing in family law and property inheritance cases. Laura Thomas, after hearing everything, decided to file a lawsuit against Veronica. She sent a legal notice to Veronica, accusing her of hiding the will and demanding compensation for fraud. Veronica was surprised to receive the notice. She had thought that Eleanor was a simple-minded woman, easy to deceive. But she did not know that Eleanor could go this far. Veronica initially did not take the lawsuit seriously. She thought Eleanor was trying to scare her. But when Laura Thomas obtained a court order to freeze Veronica's bank accounts and assets, Veronica became alarmed. She realized that Eleanor would not let her off the hook this time. Veronica contacted her lawyer, but her lawyer made her understand that after the will was found, it would be difficult for Veronica to win the case. The case went to court. Laura Thomas handled the case with great skill. She presented all the evidence of Veronica's fraud and her hiding of the will to the court. Eleanor and Mark gave their testimonies in court. They detailed their father's will and Veronica's deception. The court ruled against Veronica. The court found Veronica guilty of fraud and ordered her to return all property to Eleanor and Mark. The court also ordered Veronica to pay a large sum of money as compensation. Veronica lost all her property. Her business went bankrupt. She returned to Greenwich from New York as a destitute woman. Eleanor and Mark got all their property back. They fulfilled their father's dream. Eleanor had learned a lot from this difficult chapter of her life. She understood that trust and honesty are the true assets of life. She began to share her experiences with others so that they would not make the same mistakes. Eleanor spent the rest of her life in peace. She spent time with her son Mark, telling stories to her grandchildren. She taught them that difficult situations may arise in life, but it is important to learn from those situations. She made them understand that the value of family is far greater than money. She wrote her experiences in a book, which later helped change many people's lives. Her story was an inspiration, teaching people how to live with their heads held high even in difficult circumstances. Eleanor Van Dijk, a retired art gallery curator, spent most of her life in a small community in Greenwich. Her house was a few miles from Greenwich Avenue, where old houses stood in rows. After William Van Dijk's death, Eleanor's life had come to a standstill. William's memories always haunted her. She no longer went to their favorite coffee shop, the Art Cafe, where they used to have coffee together every morning. Veronica's deception had made her feel even more alone, but at the same time, it had given her a new purpose. Her struggle was not just for property. It was to honor her husband's memory and for her son's future.
Eleanor herself testified in court. She calmly and firmly recounted her life story, detailing how she had carried her family's financial burdens since childhood, how her sacrifices had been trivialized, and how she had been publicly humiliated. Every word she spoke was truthful and poignant. The judge, who had listened attentively to all the evidence and testimonies, recognized a clear pattern of exploitation. He understood that Eleanor had merely been used by her family. His verdict was clear and decisive. The judge ruled that the Vance family must reimburse Eleanor for the misused funds. This included money invested in Mark's business and funds spent on Sarah's extravagant lifestyle. It was a significant financial victory for Eleanor, but the most crucial part concerned the Portland home. The judge ruled that since Eleanor was the only person consistently making the mortgage payments, the title to the house would be legally transferred to her name. This was an unexpected triumph that brought Eleanor complete independence from her family. Furthermore, the judge issued a restraining order against George and Martha, prohibiting them from contacting Eleanor. This was vital for Eleanor's peace of mind. She would no longer be subjected to their accusations, their blackmail, and their exploitation. As Eleanor walked out of the courtroom, she felt a profound sense of relief. Years of burden seemed to lift from her shoulders. She smiled at her lawyers. It had been the toughest battle of her life, but she had won. She had not just fought for money or a house, she had fought for her self-respect and her future. After the legal battle concluded, Eleanor Vance embarked on a new chapter in her life. She sold the Portland home. This house, once a symbol of her family's exploitation, now became a symbol of her liberation. With the proceeds from the sale, she decided to fulfill a new dream. She established the Eleanor Vance Foundation. Based in Seattle, this foundation was the culmination of all her life experiences and struggles. She wanted to ensure that other women would not fall victim to similar exploitation, and that they could fulfill their own dreams. The foundation's primary goal was to provide scholarships and mentorship to first-generation women architects from underserved communities. Eleanor knew that there were many barriers for women in the architectural profession, especially for those from financially or socially disadvantaged backgrounds. She wanted these women to have the opportunity to develop their talents and create their own identities. The foundation quickly became successful. Eleanor's story inspired many women. She began sharing her experiences at various seminars and conferences, detailing how she had freed herself from her family's exploitation and built her own life. Her story became a shining example of courage, resilience, and self-confidence. Through the Eleanor Vance Foundation, she helped many young women architects achieve their dreams. She provided them with advice, networking opportunities, and financial assistance. She taught them how to recognize their own worth, how to fight for their rights, and how to achieve their aspirations. Eleanor, finally free from the burden of her exploitative family, found true fulfillment in empowering others. She proved that true generosity lies not in enabling dependency, but in fostering independence and opportunity. She transformed her past into a positive force that would help many women in the future to achieve their dreams. Her life was now completely different. She lived on her own terms. She enjoyed her work, helped others through her foundation, and built a new family for herself, a family founded on love, respect, and mutual support. She realized that true happiness lies not in external validation, but in inner peace and self-satisfaction. Eleanor Vance's story was a tale of a woman's self-discovery, a woman's liberation, and a woman's empowerment. It proves that even the toughest moments in life can lead us to our greatest victories, if we believe in ourselves and fight for our rights.
Eleanor's story was not limited to Greenwich. Her books and lectures brought her national recognition. She appeared as a guest on various television shows, where she shared her experiences and knowledge. Thousands of people were inspired by her story. She proved that an ordinary person can do something extraordinary through their strong determination and courage. Her life was a shining example, which will always inspire people to walk on the right path. Her story was an immortal creation, which will be told from generation to generation. Her name will be written in golden letters in the pages of history as a righteous and courageous person. Eleanor Van Dijk, from an ordinary art gallery curator, became a legend, who became a symbol of honesty and justice at every step of her life. Her story was a beacon, leading people from darkness to light. Eleanor's life was an open book, where every page told a story of struggle, patience, and victory. She often told her grandchildren, "Life will put you through many difficult tests, but remember, your inner strength will help you overcome all obstacles." These words were not just advice, they were a reflection of her own life. She proved that true wealth is knowledge, honesty, and love for humanity. Her story found a place in every drawing room, every school classroom, and every library shelf in Greenwich. It was an inspiration, teaching people how to uphold their values and contribute to society. Eleanor Van Dijk, an ordinary woman who wrote her name in the pages of history through her extraordinary courage and determination. In Eleanor's long journey, she set an example not only for herself, but for society. Her story transcended the boundaries of Greenwich and gained national and international recognition. She presented her experiences at various seminars and workshops, where she discussed family fraud, will-related complexities, and how justice can be established through legal processes. Each of her speeches contained deep emotion and real-life experiences, which deeply touched the audience. She would say, "When betrayal comes from within the family, it hurts the most. But the strength to bounce back from that pain is also within us." These words inspired thousands of people who had suffered similar situations. Mark, following in his mother's footsteps, began his career as a successful lawyer. He, along with his mother, established the Stewart Legal Aid Center, which provided legal assistance especially to the elderly and vulnerable. This center became an important institution in Greenwich, where countless people received free legal advice and assistance. Mark learned from his mother how justice can be established in society through the proper application of law. He took every chapter of his mother's story as an inspiration for his own career. Veronica Van Dijk, for her deception, became completely ostracized from society. Her business was destroyed, and she lost all her property. She spent the rest of her life in regret and loneliness. Her story was a warning, teaching people that greed and deception ultimately lead to destruction. Veronica's fate was a clear example of justice, proving that no one gets away with injustice. Eleanor Van Dijk lived as an inspiring woman until her last day. Her story was not just about finding a will, it was a story of a woman's self-respect, justice, and fight for love. Her life proved that even in adverse circumstances, a person can uphold their values and win by fighting for the truth. Her story was told in every home in Greenwich, teaching people honesty and courage. She proved with her life that love and trust are the true assets of life, which cannot be bought with any money or property. When Eleanor sat in her garden watching the sunset, there was no sadness in her heart. There was only peace and contentment. She knew William was watching her and was proud of her. Every moment of her life was a lesson, an inspiration. She proved with her life that the victory of truth is inevitable. Eleanor's story was not just a family dispute, it was a reflection of a larger social context. It shows how personal greed and deception can sever family ties, and how an ordinary person can restore those ties through their strong determination. Eleanor's fight was not just for herself. It was a message to every person in society that justice and honesty always prevail. Her story will remain an unforgettable chapter in the history of Greenwich. Eleanor's story spread throughout every home in Greenwich. Her name was no longer just the name of a curator, it was synonymous with courage. When children went to school, they heard Eleanor's story. They learned how to fight for the truth, how to overcome greed. Eleanor's life was a living legend, always inspiring people to walk on the right path. Her story was an immortal creation, which will be told from generation to generation. Her name will be written in golden letters in the pages of history as a righteous and courageous person. Eleanor's story was not limited to Greenwich. Her books and lectures brought her national recognition. She appeared as a guest on various television shows, where she shared her experiences and knowledge. Thousands of people were inspired by her story. She proved that an ordinary person can do something extraordinary through their strong determination and courage. Her life was a shining example, which will always inspire people to walk on the right path. Her story was an immortal creation, which will be told from generation to generation. Her name will be written in golden letters in the pages of history as a righteous and courageous person. Eleanor Van Dijk, from an ordinary art gallery curator, became a legend who became a symbol of honesty and justice at every step of her life. Her story was a beacon, leading people from darkness to light.